Today's update. I was able to finally contact Daniel. He is currently, well, probably not today, but approximately 36 hours ago when I last spoke with him, he was experiencing 90-degree temperatures with 90% humidity. It was not conducive to what he and I refer to as marbles. Well, we'll give you an update. It's not that I didn't talk with him, I did, but we were not able to do any dream interpretations. I also went and saw an acquaintance, potential friend, whom I hadn't seen in 5 years. This is the individual, a member of ostensible clergy that I have known for 25 years here at upstate New York. The individual was surprised to see me, hadn't seen me in probably 5 or 6 years. And I spoke with that individual for about 2.5 hours. This is the same individual. I got my quote, I did my quick mental math upside down. It was about the last time I saw this individual 5 or 6 years ago. This was the individual who speaks of persons, vessels, legalese, if you're acquainted with the fake world legalese industry. Vessels, persons, and in this individual's vernacular, as concerning the evil and unclean spirits, hateful birds, they're just looking for a car to drive. And I reminded him of that. He did remember it. I told him that I was quoting him. Anyway, I talked with him at great length, and he has an observance that dovetails pretty much with what I was Chicken Little. Well, not quite Chicken Little. It's already happened once. It's going to happen again, apparently. The plandemic, scamdemic, pandemic socialism. It appears that the activities of the eugenicists, the Rockefellers, Bill Gates et al., their activities from November of 2019, although they've been active ever since, Margaret Sanger, even before then, but in modernity, because I had a dream. I saw a cross with 3 heads suspended from it, a black cross, and one of them was Hitler. And I was very confused by this dark similitude symbology. And what the interpretation of that particular dream, and I'm just going by memory, there's more details, but the gist of it was that for the last about approximately 40 years or a little more, the eugenicists are no longer honest. Up until that time, apparently, they were pretty open and honest about who they were, what they are, and what they're doing and their goals. Since that time, they have become more covert, disingenuous liars, what have you. That being said, if you look at Bill Gates' TED Talk from 2010 and 2015, you'll see his very simple math equation, zeroing out carbon, you being that carbon producing, so-called humans as the carbon producing source of carbon, using, immunizations and reproductive services. What is he telling you? It's simplistically, we're going to sterilize you all. Okay. And or kill you all with our soft kill, what have you. I may not look so beautiful today. I was doing some work before this recording, and I have yet to trim my beard back, and I already need another haircut. But, oh well. Anyway, so my acquaintance told me that he very much believes that they're getting ready to roll out another round of pandemic socialism, scamdemic, plandemic, whatever you want to call it, lockdowns. And this is dovetailing with what I was talking about when the recording stopped last. And I'm pretty sure that the warning that I received is, considering the shortness of time, as of this recording, it could happen within 3 to 4 weeks of this recording. Again, it's speculative information at this time. I don't have the "Thus saith Yua" yet, but I believe that is, it's obvious that the two individuals that I saw high up, I believe they were probably, and I will try to remember to ask Daniel, I've seen these two individuals before, but they appeared differently to me when I perceived them 6 years ago. My mind perceived them differently back then, I think. I did see two individuals creating this poison toxin, which then ultimately, and it's greatly, what I'm telling you is like the Cliff Notes of the dream, because it was actually very long and very complex. And it didn't need to be interpreted by Daniel. Daniel was actually upset. He was like, "Hey, what is this you're saying?" Because I'd been telling people that, there's this mass sterilization campaign coming, blah, blah, blah. He's like, "What is this you're telling people?" Because I hadn't told him. And so then I told him, and he was like, "Oh, you're right." I had gotten it correct. All of it, no less. That is very, very rare. Quite often, these dark similitudes, I haven't a clue sometimes. I had another vision about a week, maybe 2 weeks after the previous recording. I saw a triangle. It was a vision. I just saw a triangle as if I was looking through a triangle-shaped window, and I just saw human skulls behind it. Just a pile, it was just a wall of human skulls through this triangle-shaped window, if you will. That cannot be interpreted as, in my world, unicorns eat rainbows and defecate butterflies. No. That's fake world. That's fantasy land and fake world, and you're pecking at your scrying mirror for your next burst of happy stimulation. No. You'll be doing that as you're experiencing negative effects, but as long as you're getting your burst and hunt and peck of your next stimulation, I'm feeling bad, but I'm just going to get sent home with pandemic socialism and lay on the couch and get my free NEET bucks, NEET, acronym, capital N, capital E, capital T, not in education, employment, or training. NEET bucks. More of that gives me that. Yeah. Anyway, as you expire from the poisons and the toxins that they have administered to you via the air, the water, the food, and the poison injections, however they're going to do it to you. If I forgot to say in the previous recordings, about 2 or 2.5 years ago, I had a dream where I was in a line of individuals. I was being taken into a prison camp. And I was number 44 to go into the prison camp. And I told Daniel this, and he said, "You've got to get out of there." He said, "They are going to put you in prison eventually." So I presume this would be the so-called FEMA camps, if you will. The persons that don't accept the poison injections, what have you. And if you've seen on, what was it, El Salvador, they built this new 80,000 unit prison, and they're just throwing anybody in there they don't like. Well, that's not entirely true. Anybody they perceive as a gang member, non-judicially, they see you, you got gangland tattoos, they scoop you up and they throw your behind, your ass in there. So that's what's going on in the Americas. So I perceive that to take place. And of course, John Coleman, in the Conspirators' Hierarchy, the Committee of 300, written in 1992, which I found and read in 1994, spring of 1994, he talked about FEMA. And anyway, it's no secret about the FEMA camps now, but I'd known about FEMA camps for 29 years before most everybody else. But I didn't really talk about it because the dum-dums... What is this little creature on me here? A spider. A small spider. So the gist of it is that Also on Politically Incorrect on 4chan, I'm seeing the ramping up of more news stories of, they're making, there was a story about record batches of vaccine being created in the United Kingdom, an alleged leak about the Biden administration getting ready to roll out more lockdowns, blah, blah, blah. Again, now this is all just speculation and hearsay. 4chan is not, for me personally, is an excellent source of information, but you have to have discernment. It's a horrid, terrible place full of shills and misinformation and disinformation and psyops. That was how I kind of got famous. And the cabal are like, ooh, we like you. It was you versus millions, and you won, and you did it. I did it on 4chan. That's a whole nother story. But suffice it to say, what is it on random? Only a fool would accept the stories here as true and factual, whatever. But that's just the caveat. There is truthful information there. I mean, it was where I met. Well, I had already met Pharaoh, but Pharaoh had published a public message, both on Random and on Politically Incorrect, saying, see this guy here? Yeah, he's getting purged. Who was this? Jacob Rothschild, 4th Baron Rothschild. Yeah, the message that he was going to get purged was published on 4chan 3 to 5 days in advance. And of course, whoosh, went over the masses' head. Did Chet save those messages? Yes, he did. Although I was surprised to find out that the guy I know as Pharaoh was the one who actually did it and then took the place of Jacob Rothschild at the head of the table of Rothschild. But then later, he couldn't help himself. And we were having our little pissing match, as we sometimes did. And I was like, so who could kill Jacob Rothschild? And Pharaoh said, I did. And I'm like, and who sits at the head of the table of Rothschild now? And Pharaoh said, I do. So anyway, the world was told, but the dum-dums. Anyway, that has to do with the cabal telling you what they're going to do before they do it. And they did it. So 4chan is a source of information, generally secular, not always spiritual, but I'd say 5 to 10% of the information there is useful. So I keep seeing a ramp up now of threads. It started maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, certainly 10 days ago, of a resurgence, the stories about new variants and a spike in cases, blah, 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 the usual yada, yada, yada. I use that in quotes because maybe that's no so bad. I remember I was with my friend Carol Leonard Page, and we would go and kind of cruise around. We would go shopping. He would always have me go with him for multiple reasons, which are not germane to this discussion. But one time it was the so-called Christmas season, and of course, Carol and I, being Torah keepers, Carol was like, I want one of those big, high efficiency compression horns. You see 4 of them on the top of some van or car, and he'd be like, yeah, I got my recording playing. Bah humbug, bah humbug, bah humbug, and just drive around the parking lot during Christmas playing really loud bah humbug and stuff like that. And that's because the masses don't realize the difference between the holy days of Olam and the holy days of Shaddai, Yahim, and Elyon. They'll readily celebrate the high days of Olam. They're so concerned about 666, but Gematria for 359, who might that be? Duh. Anyway. Who in the Hebrew, what title is Shin Tov Nin? 3 letters, all consonants. Shin Tov Nin. Who might that be? Anyway, so I happen to be Carol and I were at one of these parking lots, and I saw some individuals, and I'm like, who are these yahoos? And Carol said, be careful what you're saying. Because, and then in around that same time and not much later, I stumbled across some recordings from Europe, from the Netherlands and Germany, and they have Judy. There's yahoos and yuas and yas. Carol coined this phrase, yas guys. I'm a yas guy, and so who's this yahoo? Well, it's a Yahooist. Yeah. So don't care. Essentially, I there's this terminology in our language, yahoos, and it's spoken of disparagingly, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you're a yahoo. Are you a Yahooist? Do you know all 5 of the yuas? You can do this 5-letter, 5-finger instead of the one, the overflowing scourge, the hail that sweeps away the refuge of lies, that arm that's out like that with all 5 fingers of all 5 of the yuas extended, with the 8 black blocks and the 4 white blocks assembled to look like something that they call a swastika. Yeah, it's much older than that. And what is this? The Hexakiadekianity? All the gods of the Hexakiadekianity? Yeah, that's what that really is. Anyway, so back onto the topic here of stopping from that segue, that it is obvious now, between the dream that I received with the very clear warning that you are in extremely grave danger and you must leave within the hour. Every now and then I think about that dream that I had where I was prisoner number 44 being led into a prison. That's what they're planning for the dissidents. If you do not leave the daughter of Babylon, you'll probably die here. Well, you will die here. You're going to die here. There are so many different ways death is going to take the masses here. And that dream that I had where I saw all 4 of the power beings, those 4 great big steam engines. And this is preliminary. I got to ask Daniel. I had this dream. It's where you noticed I started using this phrase, sandwiches. The elves came to me and complained, I'm not making enough sandwiches. I was in this dream. I was in a restaurant. I was all by myself. We just had this interesting restaurant. I don't know if it's a chain. I don't want to say its name here because no affiliation. But anyway, and they've got these sandwiches, and they have like a half a pound or a pound of meat on them. They're huge. They're wow. I've been tempted to go there. I even have a friend that like, hey, you want me to take you? I'll treat you. You don't have to pay anything. And that was how my mind perceived this, that when I had this dream, I was making these gigantic sandwiches, these big, beautiful sandwiches. I was all by myself. It was just me and this big, huge, empty restaurant kitchen. But where were the sandwiches going? There were 3 places my mind perceived them as courts. The Supreme Court of New York, which is the court of general jurisdiction, the court of no jurisdictional financial limits for damage levels, unlike county court and the inferior justice courts and city courts and town courts and small claims courts and all those. New York has the most complex court system of those so-called United States. 13 different courts here. Certainly taught me how to litigate. The court of general jurisdiction is the Supreme Court of New York, and at every county. And then there's the appellate division. There's 4 appellate divisions: the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and 4th department. Where I'm located at the 4th department, so-called 5th Judicial District. And then the highest court of New York is the New York Court of Appeals at Albany. In this dream, because I perceived that I was in this very well-appointed restaurant that made sandwiches for the government, and specifically for the courts. My hat's being blown in the wind here. Beautiful breeze is blowing in, cooling me off. The thing was, I was only making sandwiches for Supreme Court and the New York Court of Appeals. I was not making any sandwiches for the appellate division. I found this confusing. So what's the interpretation? Chet was seeing the dark similitude. What's the interpretation? that the archangels, at least of that saying, the archangels are no longer active. The archangels are no longer active, apparently, anymore. The arca power beings are active, and the power beings are active. See, this is what I was being told. There's 3 layers of government, which is the Hexkaiadeki entity. The arca power beings, the L's at the top, Shaddai, Ahim, Elyon, Olam. Then the arca only beings, the archangels, Yua, Gabriel, Michael, Abaddon, and then the seraphim, the man seraph, eagle seraph, lion seraph, calf seraph, Vulcan Hephaestus for the calf seraph, Athena for the eagle seraph, Cheeto's cat, I like to call him, but he's got a name. There are names that the other cultures and civilizations have called and known the seraphim. They have names. So if my interpretation is correct, I'm guessing the time for words is over. The Genesis 6:3 time frame of my spirit shall always strive with mankind. His years shall be 120 years, 6,000 years, 120 Jubilee years. This was the time where power was generally restrained. The arca beings themselves were generally restrained, but the spirit of Yua came to speak, to chide, talk. The spirit, the breath, speaking. The time for words and talking is over. All communications have been terminated to the earth now 23 months ago. Coming up on our 2nd anniversary, as of the fall equinox, the 2-year anniversary of the termination of all spiritual communications to the earth generally, and that the spiritual communications only continue to those that were warned in advance and transitioned. I'm trans arca. I'm Treya. What are your pronouns? Batorf, Brown, Ribble, Payden, Yua, Shaddai, Ahim, Elyon, Olam. Oh yeah. What are your pronouns? Him and her, they, them, the L's, the 2 female L's and the 2 male L's. Yeah. I transitioned from power to arca. I was warned about 6 months in advance that I was receiving my communications from the power realm spiritually, and that I had to change. Literally, it seemed, I was told, it was actually the way it was. I had to change my internet service providers. I see this rack of equipment, modem and router and, what do they call it? Trying to think at the higher levels. There's, I don't know, it's not like a DMAC, what it's called. But anyway, the way internet connections are made at the higher levels, at the routers and big switches. And I see this big rack of equipment, and I was told that I had to change the way, seek and change the way that I connect spiritually to the arca reality, because I was not then really presently connected to the arca reality. I was connected to the power reality. So I managed to make the change, and I now, and observed then over time, the orthogonal change. I saw this telephone pole get pulled out of the ground and then start to rotate, and all these sparks and the wires and everything. And this was during the time between, this was, I don't know, June or July, between the time of approximately April 17th of 2021 and September 22nd, 2021, when the transition was complete. The age of because that was approximately April 17th was the beginning of the start of the transition, of the conclusion of the age of the fishers of men, and the beginning of the age of the water bearers of Yua Ad Elyon. And I don't know if I had said in my previous dream, I wanted to see the spirit reality, and I saw this woman, very old looking, but just white beyond white, everything, white garment, white hair, as white as zone paint, bright white zone paint, like that, just brilliant white. It was daytime outside. I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, and there's this outcropping that actually went down, literally, like 5 or 6 feet. It was a cliff, and then it was down a little bit, and then this outcropping, and this woman was standing on the outcropping, and she leaned forward slowly, and then stopped, standing at a 45-degree angle, just standing there. And I'm thinking, That's not the laws of physics as I know them in my dimension, where you can just stand at a 45-degree angle and then I'm looking over the edge and it's down about 2,000, 3,000 feet down. And she just went, and I saw the bottoms of her shoes were just as white. She had white shoes on. The bottoms of her shoes were white, and she just, and there was a little tiny shore at the bottom, and she went thunk, plunk, like a high diver. She went right into the water. There was more to that dream, and Daniel couldn't interpret it all. I'm gonna have to run that by him again. It was really interesting. But that was that I wanted to know. I wanted to see, because this was 2.5 years ago. I'm still in a growing process, but I was just coming into knowing the El Elyon Yua reality, that breath reality, the one that says you cannot look upon me lest you die. That was the one that I was, I hadn't seen that one. Well, of course you can't see that one lest you die. So it was then and then I saw this telephone pole. I had these repeated dreams then throughout that time frame at the beginning of the transition, April approximately 17th of 2021, and then throughout the spring and the summer, and at the end of the summer at the fall equinox. The transition was complete on September 22nd, 2021. The transition, the end of the Fishers of Men was complete, and the age of Yua El Elyon, the water bearers, the age of the Holy Spirit had begun. The age of Aquarius. Something that I heard 50 years ago. 50 years ago, I heard that Fifth Dimension song. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It's here now. It's been here. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the age of Aquarius. It's here. The problem is that the overwhelming vast majority of individuals are not spiritual. They're, in Pharaoh's words, dum-dums and worse. And so all spiritual communications have been terminated, and they just don't get it. They just don't get it, and worse is just everything that's coming now. Oh, that's what I was saying. So to finish this, the reason why I was not receiving anything from the Arca only beings is because they are the ones that just speak. The time for speaking is over. It's deeds. You heard that cliche, deeds, not words. Yeah, that's what's going on now. What I perceived as the New York Court of Appeals as the Arca power beings, they're doing things, and the power beings are doing things, but what I perceived as the appellate division, interesting, New York's got 4 appellate divisions, 4 archangels. The archangels are inactive. That is because their job to bring forth the decrees. The decrees, at least some of them at this juncture, they've already been made. They're now being carried out. We're in the enforcement phase now. The orders have been made. The trial took place 23 months ago. The trial of the earth, which you already heard me describe, and now the power beings are coming. All from all 4 of the realities. All 4. The Olam reality, the Shaddai reality, the Ahim reality, the El Elyon reality. They are all sending their respective power beings to bring destruction and death upon the earth. Where there's no more of this, oh, Jeebus loves you. No. He's coming now as the roaring lion with the sharp sword coming out of his mouth to slay his enemies. The world's had its 6,000 years to decide, do you want Poseidon? And the masses were no, we want atheism, and we don't want Poseidon. We don't want Yeshua HaMashiach of Nazareth. We don't want Jesus. No, we want cash and booze, coke, and hookers and tell-lie vision. Okay, that's what you're going to get. Along with heaping piles of destruction and death, that's what's coming now. And the death forces of the Cabal and Islam and the eugenicists, the 3 death forces of Revelation 16:13 spreading out over the earth. Especially the eugenicists now. And of course the red and the green horse, the horse of war, and pale horse, the green horse of death and hell. They're riding now too. So, no really good news. If you're righteous, yeah, this is good news. But there's only like that's what the elves have told me. There's only one righteous for 100 per 100,000 that are not righteous now, or that are not worthy of being salvaged. This is a general evacuation alarm. Get out! In fact, this past week, last week, somebody posted a little small map of Europe with 4 nations, blue highlighted together: Poland, Hungary, Slovenia, Czechoslovakia, and said, this is the best place in the world to live. And I was like, you get it. You get it. Somebody else is, some neurons clicking in there. Somebody's hearing you, Jan, saying, guess what? You want to stay alive as the destruction and death is coming upon the entire earth? Poland, Hungary, Slovenia, Czechoslovakia. I was having an argument with one of my friends. He said, nah, man, Czechoslovakia, they're really liberal. So primarily Poland, Hungary, but wherever EUA tells you around that area of the world. North America, no, you're not going to survive. You're going to die. Maybe not right away. You'll live large and, deliciously for another maybe 17, 19 years. But then you're going to be under 6 inches of black, silvery brown volcanic ash from the Yellowstone caldera. How much time do I have left here? Approximately 7 minutes. They're in time, as the destructions come from Delta Capricorni, when the flash bang shows up and starts doing its big thing. But there's going to be plenty of destruction and death, say it 10 times fast, coming upon the earth in the meantime. It's just going to ratchet up. I had this one dream. I was in this car and I couldn't really control it. The brakes didn't work. The steering didn't work really well. And have you ever been in a car, older cars like this, mechanical? Well, even the new ones probably will do it too. That's how they kill people. But anyway, where your throttle return spring breaks and the accelerator goes bloop and falls on the floor, and the thing goes WOT, wide open throttle. Stepping on the brakes, not going to help much. The speedometer's climbing. You shut the key off. That's kind of what this car ride was like. This is a dream I had probably 2.5 years ago, at least a year and a half ago. I was in this car. I was going down the road, and man, I was hitting these bumps. And it was accelerating, and I couldn't control it, and it was hitting more and more bumps. And there was these weird narrow lanes and stuff, and there was oncoming traffic blasting right by me, and it was a little scary. And Daniel told me, he said, no, you're being presented with the end times scenario, the birth pangs, that things are just going to keep happening faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why it's called the birth pangs, the travailing of creation. And we're in that now. We're in that now. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. The boots on the ground report. More of everything bad. More of everything bad. People sleeping in the streets, rampant drug addiction, theft, debauchery, sexual immorality, people just defecating wherever they want. If you've ever heard of the, I suppose it's slanderous, but the way that India is looked at. I even saw this recently, came across the sign. It was apparently in an airport in India, big sign posted, no defecating in the airport. Like, they have this problem. Yes. Just killed me, a mosquito. Wonder if it's one of those geoengineered mosquitoes crossed with the bumblebees? Yeah. I felt it land on me. Not just that it bit me. I felt it land. Bam. Reminds me of the Dalai Lama when he was being interviewed. Was it Wallace? George Wallace? That 60 Minutes guy? One mosquito comes along. I go, oh no, no, it was the Dalai Lama. The mosquito comes along. Here's the Dalai Lama saying, oh, we just live in peace and harmony with everything. Uh-huh. That was something else my dad always used to do. Uh-huh. Clowns. clown. And so the Dalai Lama is like, yes, the mosquito come. But then another mosquito come. And Dalai Lama go, but then the third mosquito come. And Dalai Lama go, and Wallace and the Dalai Lama, they both start laughing. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, live in peace and harmony with all things. Right. Yeah, sure. Clowns. Anyway, I digress. So that's just more clown world, more violence, more theft, more scams, murders, drunkenness, every evil work. All the works of the flesh, the Galatians works, now the works of the flesh are manifest, blah, 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 blah. Hatred, variations, emulations, strife, seditions, heresies, all the groups, those. Galatians 5. I was doing my word search on pharmakeia. Galatians 5, Revelation 9, something 7. Sorcery, sorcerers, pharmakeia. They bewitched the whole world by their sorceries. Pharmakeia. That's the eugenicists and the Rockefellers, their iatrogenic disease. And that's the warning. That's that syringe with the hatch I cracked open. And the way I saw the crystals growing in there. Not like stalagmites and stalactites. It's not like that. That's where it drips. But no, this is where you it's a solution and it grows in a suspension solution. It's not a colloid, a solution. That's what it looked like in there. The crystals that you make a mineral bath, whatever, you add these salts or whatever and coloring, whatever, and these crystals will grow in days, weeks, and months. And that's how my mind perceived what I saw inside that shot, were these crystals that would grow in these crisscross patterns. And of course, the embalmers that have been embalming the individuals now for 2 years now that have died from the clot shot, the poison injections, they've been pulling out all these obstructions and growths that grow inside these people's circulatory systems. And I've heard these theories about interactions with directed RF energy, a HERF weapon. Directed, the cell phone frequencies. They've upgraded the towers to frequencies as high as 60 gigahertz, and the reason for that is a directed energy weapon concentrated from all sorts of panels all over the place. There's a certain area of resistance, then all the towers everywhere, their panels, all the panels that crisscross on that particular area will be cranked up to the maximum. There'll be a kill zone. So that's just one of the potential theories. Daniel talked about that to me. Of course, I being with my experience as radio station engineer and all my electronic in engineering and R&D and all the stuff I have with electronics and RF, it's obvious to me. And so it's just get out whenever the door opens. I've had, besides the dream of the Citadel, where the door was there, I was able to exit the Citadel. I left the United States, the daughter of Babylon, and stepped onto the raft. I'm going to assume that raft was the area of Poland, Hungary. Not sure. I think that's what that raft was. It's the place of safety. It just went. Oh, and then I had another dream where it was a vision. I saw a white wall, a door. The wall was very thick. You could see because the door went. From my perspective, it opened to the right. So to you,